Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another show. This is yours truly, Culture Shock. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We are here today to discuss the Week 5 matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts is coming off of a loss to the Rams, which should be a bounce back game for them this week. But like I said, it's any given Sunday. Nothing's a walk in the park. You got to go out there and play football, regardless of the situation or who you're playing. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Colts team come out this week. Are they going to be aggressive? Are they going to still play conservative football to what they used to playing? Or are they just going to full out collapse? After the first loss, it can mess with you mentally. But these games are to prepare you to make you stronger. And last week was definitely needed for the Colts. Of course, they were 3-0. A lot of talks, going into that game, and it wound up just coming back and hitting them right in the mouth. With the whole crowd pumping noise in SoFi Stadium and things of that nature. This week they go back home into Indianapolis. They're going to acknowledge Shaquille Leonard. He just announced his retirement. Ball out, dude, man. Shaquille Leonard was one of my favorite players. I still have his jersey in my closet. One of those guys, man. He was a beast when he was healthy in his prime. It was always that conversation of which linebacker was better, him or Fred Warner, even though those two prototypes are completely different. But both of those guys are a beast. That debate's pretty much over at this point. But Shaquille in his prime was one of the best linebackers. A really good tackler, definitely a turnover magnet. Whenever the ball was in his area, he went to go find it, man. He was a ball hawk, track the ball wherever he went, man. He was a complete dog. Congratulations to Shaquille. Wish him the best post-NFL career. I see he was coaching on his Instagram. So, hopefully he found his pride and joy of what he wanted to do outside of football, playing, in the NFL. So, hopefully he's good moving forward. He's definitely a dog for the Colts. Now, hopefully they win that game for him. I know he's probably going to be in the building. So, it's going to be electric in Lucas Oil Stadium. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they come out this game. Moving forward to talk about this game against the Raiders. The Raiders have not been on the strong side of football as of late this year. They're still trying to figure it out. They don't have a franchise quarterback. That team is just, all over the place, honestly. But, with Pete Carroll out there and Geno Smith at the quarterback position, Geno had himself a solid year last year. He could still put up some numbers when he gets that opportunity. But overall, in general, that team just has been dysfunctional. They're still trying to find their groove and their pace and stride. Pete Carroll, I'm pretty sure, is going to figure something out. All he needs is some time. They're still fresh. Still don't know what direction they want to go as of right now. But, they're getting led by Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty looked like he just found his groove at the right time and with perfect time then going into playing Indianapolis. Indianapolis has been pretty good at stopping the run as of late. Of course, they just played the Rams and Kyron Williamson to having himself a solid year. But, going up against Indianapolis, he didn't really have that breakout game that people was expecting, especially myself. I think the Colts defense did a pretty good job holding them down. They're going to have a big test against them this week with Ashton Jeanty, who looked like he just turned the clock back into college form. He changed his stance back to what he usually stands in. It's going to be an interesting game to see how this Colts defense comes out. Of course, with Grover and DeForest Buckner in the middle of that field, middle of that line, they pretty much run up everything. So the outside is going to have to really figure it out. And we've seen, in previous weeks, even with the victories, we've seen the outside run blocks not really been good. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out this week against Jeanty. Because if they don't stop Jeanty, Jeanty's going to probably have a career day. And fantasy owners are going to love that. I know a lot of people got Jeanty on their fantasy teams. So this week could be a potential breakout week for him. But the run defense for the Colts have been good. But they're going to really have to step up this week. The defense has been good as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of pressures and scheme they bring out towards Geno Smith in that offense. The offense for the Raiders has not been really good. They've been struggling. They've been struggling this week. For injury reports, Zaire has been dealing with an ankle injury, as we've seen. Of course, there's no Kenny Moore this week. Daniel Scott still does not practice. Xavier Howard is not practicing due to personal reasons. He'll probably be back later on in the week, hopefully. But when it comes to the Raiders, they do have a lot of turnovers, multiple interceptions. Like I said, they're battling injuries on the offensive line, so it could be a potential big day for the Colts defensive line. If Oh, we hope so that they can come out there. I got struck for a minute, but hopefully the defense can come out there with the banged up offensive line for the Raiders. Hopefully the Colts can turn it up a notch with the pressures and force Geno to make some bad plays and maybe get some momentum back for the Colts defense. They haven't had a turnover in a few weeks. So hopefully they can come out there and make some noise on the defensive side. They've been playing some good football. They really have. They really stuck their neck out last week as well against a high-powered Rams offense. The Rams offense is really good, but I think the Colts defense held their own when they had to. Besides, the last-minute touchdown to Tutu Atwell for 88 yards, but I think the defense has been, for what they did, I think they held the Rams offense pretty good as of late. With Ward covering Adams, Ward's been stellar since he got out there. Mekhi Blackman's probably going to have himself a big day as well. They're going up against Trey Tucker, one of Alec Pierce's former wide receivers in college, one of his teammates. It's going to be interesting to see how the Colts offense and secondary steps up this week against Geno Smith and those guys. But like I said, a banged up offensive line, defensive line look like they should have a field day. They should. And then, of course, when it comes to, the Raiders playing on the road, time change and everything like that, that can play a huge favor for the Colts as well. So it should be interesting. I mean, it's still neutral because it's indoors. It's still neutral. But, those little things definitely matter. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Colts can go out there and force some pressure and make some mistakes. Going into the Colts offense, Daniel Jones has been having himself a good year. He's seen a lot of pressure last week with the Rams. It's not going to get any easier going up against Maxx Crosby. That guy's a beast. So hopefully, the offensive line can hold up. Looking like they're getting Gonsalves back this week and potentially Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce was dearly missed last week, and it showed. Even with all of the mishaps with A.D. Mitchell and things like that, Alec Pierce, it showed you why he needs to be out there on the field, man. That guy's a dog. And he's definitely reliable in a lot of situations that could have been used last week. So if we can get him back this week, that'll be a huge boost for the Colts offense. And Daniel Jones just has to be consistent. I know he's probably going to be in his head with those turnovers from last week. But, a lot of people are probably counting them out. They're probably saying, oh, Daniel Jones has turned back the clock to his normal self. But it's just one game, and those interceptions was not really on him. I mean, the first one was, but those wasn't like bad interceptions. Those were just like throw-up balls, like jump balls. So I think he can pretty much go back out there this week and pretty much go back to being what he usually does. The scheme's there. The game plan's there. Alec Pierce, if he comes back, pretty much opens up the offense again. Feeding Jonathan Taylor is going to be a huge thing to do this week. And, it's going to be a tight end matchup as well. You got Tyler Warren and Brock Bowers, both of those guys out there. Tyler Warren's probably going to have himself another eventful week. With that going up against that defense, he's going to be a high usage rate for him this week, in my opinion. I think Tyler Warren's going to be used very well this week going up against this Raiders defense. But those are just two guys in my thought process that can have themselves a big week, Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren, even though you could probably say that. It's probably cliche to use those two guys, but, I mean, every week those two guys are definitely bound to have breakout games. Josh Downs is another guy that comes into mind that can have himself a good day, with every rotation scheme-wise, with all the wide receivers being rotated in and out. I feel like Josh Downs this week could have himself a big week just due to who he has, what he's going up against. And like I said, this is a bounce-back game for the Colts. Home field advantage. Shaquille Leonard's been acknowledged, I'm sure. And, just bouncing back from after last week. They're going to come into this week with a chip on their shoulder. I'm pretty sure they're not going to take this team lightly, but they're going to be a little bit more aggressive this week than what they were last week. And like I said, last week wasn't really a bad week. Was it a bad matchup? Maybe some people may say. But like I said, they were in the game. They were in it the whole time, regardless of the situation and the turnovers. They still had a chance to win the game. So I'm pretty sure this week they're going to go out this week and just be aggressive straight out the gate. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot of firepower coming out the Colts this week against the Raiders. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against this team. Like I said, you can't take this team lightly with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. Geno Smith has himself. He's good for one good game. He's good for a good game. And this could potentially be the one. It can probably, sneak up on the Colts, and with the Colts being the Colts, anything can happen. But like I said, with Lou Anarumo, I'm pretty sure that defense they're gonna wake up this week. They're gonna try to bounce back. Hopefully, see what they're gonna do. Hopefully, they can bring the pressure and force to make some bad plays. And for the offense, they got to be consistent. The offensive line, I want to see a little bit more protection, a little bit more balance. Like I said, Maxx Crosby, pretty sure he's going to try to have himself a field day. Let's see if Bernard Ryman's been having a really iffy year with a lot of penalties. Most of the penalties has been coming from him. He got one from Big Q, but that was 50-50. But Bernard Ryman's been having himself a really rough year. He just got paid a lot of money, and he's been having himself a pretty down year. So it'd be good to see him have a bounce back this week. It's going to be a big test this week. So he's going to have to step up. We're going to need him to step up this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how this offense comes out against his Raiders defensive line. But other than that, anything's possible this week. It's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, they got momentum, home field advantage. They're undefeated at home right now. Let's see if they can keep that win streak going against his Raiders. It should be a good game. We'll come back after to talk about it after the game. I'll probably be live to watch the games. You guys just tune in. I'm on all platforms. Appreciate you guys. Follow me. I'm everywhere. Just look up Culture Shock Podcast. It should be interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about the game, your score predictions, and who do you have, having a breakout game and things of that nature. Until next time, this is Culture Shock. You guys have a good one.